Hello everybody, Andy here from the YouTube channel Glass Half Dead. That's where you are right now. You might have found me just by Googling or YouTubing Kill Team tier list because everybody wants to know what's hot and what's not. Well, good news for you. I have the answers. And by me, I mean everybody else that has already done the content has the answers and I'm stealing it from them. What I'm doing in this video, if that didn't make it clear, is I'm looking at the tier lists from other creators, seeing what they've said, and I've amalgamated them together to see what they agree on and what they disagree on. Now, the reason I've decided to do it this way is because I think that Kill Team tier lists, are super fun and super useful for beginners to get an idea of what's going on in the meta and see what other people are thinking. But I do want to be really, really clear. Nobody knows anything, really, at this point in time. And, you know, as long as you're approaching a tier list and thinking, this is a bit of fun, this is a thing that will start discussion and a thing that we can all consider, and not going away and saying, everybody, this is the verbatim facts, this is the objective facts of the current meta and game, then I think that's really healthy, and I think tier lists are super fun to do. But I do want to just stress again, do not take this too seriously, please. This is just a bit of fun. Obviously, we all know elites are broken AF. Cool, right? We all know that's the thing. So, hey, if you want to know what's on the top tier, pick any team that has 6 models. There you go. You found the top tier. Good stuff. And if you want to know what's on the bottom tier, interestingly, none of the other tier lists agree. So that's quite interesting, I think. And that's exactly what I want to bring to you right now. Now, normally I would give you some sort of like double hello thing and there would be music in the background, but my stream deck is broken, so I'm not doing that. And instead, I'm just going to get straight on with the video. But hey, if you want to like and subscribe, that'd be awesome. Your comment can be, go and check out the other channels that I'm stealing the content from and tell me which of their tier lists you think is the most accurate in your opinion. Cool, right. First things first, which content creators am I stealing from? Good question. Why am I phrasing it this way? I don't know. Oh, because I don't care. Right, so first up, we have Can You Roll a Crit? Obviously, we all know him. He's just put out a faction guide for every single faction. Absolute mad lad. I'm glad somebody did it. I wasn't going to. That sounded incredibly dull to do, but he did it, so that's awesome. We also have Squad Games. Go and check out Squad Games. They're a podcast. I'm going to say primarily, exclusively, really, but they are on YouTube and they do things pretty good. It's good bit of back and forth banter there. And then we have Kill Team Mercenarios. Who are the Kill Team Mercenarios? Good question. They are if you use Battle Kit, which I talked about in my last video, which is the awesome app that everybody should be using, by the way, both to find your core rules, your team rules, and to track your games, then that is the tier list. Kill Team Mercenarios are the Spanish, kind of the big Spanish podcast for Kill Team. There you go. That is obviously tied into Battle Kit. Now, cool. So those are the three things, the 3 tier lists that I'm putting together. So I originally was just going to average out all of the scores and just put them into kind of one thing, but there's actually something that I do want to point out because they're all structured a little bit differently. Sorry. So if we look at Cyrac and Squad Games, you will see that these two here both have 5 tiers. S, A, B, C, D. That's very standard. We then look at Kill Team Mercenarios. They have 6 tiers. S, A+, A minus, B, C. Also, I'm just throwing this out there to the Spanish guys. That's not how you do a tier list. I just want to say that. You can't have that many delineations of A. But not the point. It's fine. We just shift everything down a grade. However, I actually much prefer the way that the Mercenarios guys have done it. Because if you have a standard 5 selections that you can put things into from Cyrac and Squad Games there, you have the ability to put something on the middle shelf, right? So there is an actual fence to be sat on. It's very lazy. Sorry, not from them. I mean in general, as a general concept. It's not good form. It's not good practice. Whenever I do a tier list, I don't want there to be an uneven number of tiers, because then if I don't know, I just kind of say, oh yeah, like it's in the middle probably. But of course, if you're coming to me because you think I know more than you about Kill Team, and I just kind of gloss over one and put it in the middle, well, that's me sitting on the fence. That's me as a creator, as somebody that in theory knows more than you, not putting any weight behind things. And so it's just a little bit poor form, in my opinion. Whereas with the Kill Team Mercenarios, here obviously we see 6. It is not possible with this tier list to put something in the middle. There is no middle. You're either slightly above or slightly below. And that just engages the creator's brain a little bit more and makes them have to make a decision. I much prefer that in my own tier lists. There you go. Right, with that said, let's take a look at what all of these tier lists agree on. So all I did here, let me bring it up for you. Bam. So this is very simple, as you can see. If all 3 of these tier lists went ahead and put a team in a particular thing, I put it there. For the Kill Team Mercenarios, let me bring that up. I just took A and A minus as being the middle tier. So there you go. Unfortunately, the fact that some of them were 5 tiers and one of them was 6 tiers meant I had to juggle it around a bit. So yeah, so firmly, no questions asked. I think this is a really good part of that we can amalgamate these. So if you want to know what is the absolute strongest teams out there, it is Warp Coven, Legionaries and Inquisitorial Agents. All 3 of those tier lists agree with it. Then in A tier, we've got the Phobos and the Brood Brothers. Then in the middle tier, or middle tiers, if you will, Hyrotech Circle, Mandrakes, Hearthkin Salvagers. And then going towards the bottom, we've got Gelapox and Vespid. So those alone are super interesting. And also the fact that nobody agrees on their final tier. Nobody has put any of the same teams in D tier, which is really interesting. I would have thought that something came out. I obviously have my own thoughts, right? I believe that certain factions probably belong there, but much like most of these content creators will also agree, you know, this is just for fun. None of us have played enough games to actually do a real tier list. We're all just guessing and going by our gut feeling, right? We haven't actually played the game enough, gotten in enough reps, or anybody has gotten in enough reps and then amalgamated that knowledge so that we can do an accurate tier list. That's why I say tier lists are just for fun, okay? So I might think, oh, well, this faction is clearly on the bottom tier. But then apparently nobody agrees with anybody about what the bottom tier is. Maybe that's good. I don't know. And then we have, what do they all disagree about? So in this one, if there was a faction that all of them had in a different tier, I then took that and just put it at the top tier that it was ever given. So here we go. So Void Dancer Troop, that's Harlequins. Nobody agreed on that. One of them had them in the bottom tier. I think the other was second to bottom tier, C tier. And then one had them up at the top tier, so I just put them in the top tier. Because it seemed less depressing than putting everything in the bottom tier. We've got the Wormblade. Again, wildly different between all of them. As we see here, one of them has them basically, I mean, A tier team, which I was really surprised by. Novitiates also up in A. If I'm honest, if I had to place them myself, again, Novitiates range from A, B, and C. I think they probably are up in A, if I'm honest. So I would agree with that one. Chaos Cults, another really interesting team. This was vacillating between B, C, and D. Somebody thought, so clearly, you know, like, these are the ones that people can't agree on. Also, do keep in mind that notice that nothing's in the S tier at this point. Everybody agrees what the S tier is. We all know that. Cool. And then we've got Pathfinders. Again, very interesting that Pathfinders seem to have dropped in esteem from so many of the top players out there, or people that make content. That's not the same thing. But something that should be noted there is that I think perhaps with the Pathfinder specifically, again, I haven't played them, so I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there as a concept, is that they used to be a certain thing, and when they were that certain thing, they were oppressive. They were really, really strong, okay? They are no longer that thing. And in addition, we have Volcus, which is a really, really dense board, but they're also not getting... Yeah. So I think that people are probably viewing Pathfinders as less than they are because they're used to them being higher than they should be. Yeah. You know, much like how sometimes GW will overbalance a team after them being too strong, they take them to too weak. It's quite possible that a lot of the content creators that made those tier lists are remembering them as super strong, and now they've had a bit of a nerf, and they're undervaluing what they can actually do because they were used to something that was insane, and now they're fine. Cool. We then get the Scout Squad. The fact that the highest the Scouts have gone is B is crazy. If you remember the end of last edition, Scouts were like S tier. They were insane. They got buffed so hard. I suspect now they're going to be buffed again because they got nerfed back to what they originally were. But of course, they were nerfed back to what they were originally were, and then needed a buff, like when they were first released. So they need a buff. There you go. They don't need power sword knives. They can just go up one model, probably, but there you go. Although that's a bit dull. Like, it would be nice if they fixed them in another way, but whatever. And finally, we've got Deathcore up in B, which means that Deathcore were ranked as B, C, and D. That's a bit mad, isn't it? Like, a team that used to be top tier up until the final season, when they truly fell off midway through ITD, but people continued to do well and perform with them up until probably Inquisition released. That was the end of ITD, I think. Or was it the beginning of ITD? I don't know. But really, they've had no solid showings since Beta Decima released, so that's quite interesting. And now, whatever's happened to them, again, I don't know. I haven't played them at all. I was actually considering going and playing a quick solo game with them right now, in fact. But just so that I can keep my fingers in pies, if you will, understand what's going on. But yes, the fact that everyone agrees they are mid to low compared to what they were, it'd be really interesting to see if that turns around and actually they, much like last edition, where obviously everybody thought Commandos were stronger than Deathcore, but then people had to learn the game to find out that actually Deathcore are pretty okay. And if that happens again because people are focusing on the easier to play teams or the teams with fewer models so that they can get more reps in, be quite interesting. Cool, that's it. Quick note, and I'm going to do a proper video on this. It's going to be another rant video where I'm just kind of shaking back and forth, stood up in my purple wall room for some reason. But I just want to throw it in at the end here. Part of the reason why this tier list is almost pointless is because wow, the game is in a shit state right now, from a balance perspective, and I really can't stress that enough. Oh my god, it's terrible, and I think that but I think it's so bad. I think it's so bad at every level of play that it is obscuring what actually matters. So we can all look at those top three teams that all the tier lists agree on. That is the team that that those three teams need to be nerfed, 100%, not even a question. But those three teams are holding back other teams that are still a problem. And yeah, there you go. So we are at some point going to get a balance patch, and it's going to nerf those top teams, no doubt. No doubt. Don't know what they're going to do. There's so many things GW could decide to do to change the game and nerf those teams that guessing would be silly. We just have to... We can suggest things, but because there's so many options, who knows, right? But then once those are nerfed, we're going to have the other teams that are currently being held down by just such a dominant S tier that they are going to rise to the cream of the crop, the top, if you will. And then we're going to have to say, okay, now we've got these teams, which are still really, really, really strong, probably as strong as those top teams, but they have a bad match into those top teams, that we then need the second balance patch to come along and take those guys down a notch as well, because they are also too broken. But we can't see that yet because we're all so focused on how damn strong those top 3 teams are. There you go. So this kill team and also tier list. Why do I keep saying kill team instead of tier list? This tier list is just for fun. All tier lists are just for fun. And as long as we keep that in mind, this is a great part of the game. It's fun to see what's so broken and that we all agree is so broken. Because let me tell you, the first time I got wrecked and tabled by elites, I was like, I'm not sure this is... I'm confused. Did I go down a power level? Have I not played for that long? No, I played into elites. Cool. I'm glad that's not just a me thing. I'm glad that's not just I'm a beginner noob and my actual skill level is really low. And yes, low level players struggle into elites because we've got all genuinely, all the top players, people that we know are play testers, coming onto other people's podcasts, not mine, I have no part in this, and saying, hey, game's fucked. Sorry. They didn't say sorry. But if you've paid attention to, all the Kill Team podcasts out there, people have openly said whether or not they're playtesters. So we know, and it's bizarre. I don't know what's going on. How did the game release in this state? I'm very confused. Anyway, cool. Thanks for listening. Hey, if you want to have fun, here's the pro tip. Play as elites or do not have elites on your table and you're going to have a whale of a time. Great game, just it's 2 games. Don't play elites. Elites are either on the table on both sides or they're off the table. Either way, you're having a banger of a game. Just make sure that you don't have elites on one side and not the other. Cool. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Stay hydrated. Goodbye.